Hello, my good friends. Brian King here once again, and welcome to the Compassionate Dad Show. I'm the Compassionate Dad most of the time, and what I'm really looking to do with this show is help nurture a movement to make the world a more compassionate place, and the way we're going to do that as parents is starting with our own children. And today I'm bringing a very special friend on, Jennie Friedman. She is a fellow ADHD coach, and she has that global vision in the work that she does. So I wanted to bring her on so that we could learn more about the wisdom that's inside the woman and be fascinated and inspired by her as well. So Jennie, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Brian. I'm so excited to be here with you guys.
So tell me, what drew you? What called you to this work, working with the ADHD community?
Well, I think the best way of saying is it sort of was always a part of my life and I didn't know it, because it turns out that it started with my sister being diagnosed later in life. And when our mother was, not doing well health-wise, we had to spend time together as adults in our 40s, which we hadn't done since we were teenagers. And I was glued to her at the hip for 2 weeks. And I couldn't make heads or tails of what she was doing. Like almost everything she did made no sense to me. And I know I'm sort of like this, the mean big sister type person, which I don't mean to be, but it, it just happened. And, this way, what did you do this? And she would get really mad at me. And then I flew home. About 2 years later, I went back, because now my mother passed away. And again, we had to spend all this time together. And I was trying to make amends because at this point, our dad had already died when I was 20. So I really needed to get along with her. She's the only family I have left. And I made this big apology for being this mean big sister, and I really wanted to be more kind. And, we have big heartfelt in my eyes. And then she said something sort of snarky that went right back, back patterns of how we were. Did we not just talk about this? We just made, why are you, sorry, that must be my age. I was like, what are you? So she just, as her doctor had told her, it was, and that sometimes I might say something to her and she doesn't really take it all in. And some of it will stick and some of it will just, as she says, roll down the hill and into the gutter and off the page. And I was like, okay. And we again spent a few weeks together getting all of my mom's things together and the funeral and all that. And when I got home, I had just been in the process of, I had finished getting my bachelor's of science in psychology and was looking what will be the next thing. Will I go get my master's in psychology? And then it was just right there in Google search. It was ADD Coach Academy. I went, ADD, that's, so I started investigating and I was like, I felt like it was a calling. I just felt instantly like I have to do this. And it's also about a 15, 16-month program that you go through. And I was like, I'm going to be an ADHD coach. I'm just done deal. It was so weird. It just really sounds like, oh, there must be more to it. But no, there's really not. I jumped right in.
And it all started with you wanting to connect with your sister.
Yeah.
It's wonderful when it begins like that. It begins in our heart.
Well, it's funny because also it turns out, in hindsight, I can see clearly that my dad also had ADHD. And he also had bipolar. He had been diagnosed at that time, they called it manic depressive. He took lithium and he went off his medication and he killed himself. And back when I was 20 years old, it was devastating and obviously life altering. But to have that kind of understanding and compassion for him, all these years later, it's like, oh, wow, so many things make sense. And he and I, in our little family of four, he and I were very close. I always identified with him more than my mom, really. And I look like him, even though I'm adopted. So it was very heart connection there. I can't argue with that. Yeah, absolutely.
So growing up and looking back in hindsight, seeing that there was this suffering in your family, that now you have the privilege of perspective
Right.
and knowing how much more suffering is out there in the world, how do you use this as leverage to serve your clients?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is, that the underlying foundations of shame that come with growing up, not really fitting in, or feeling like something's wrong with you because there seems to be something going on for others that isn't going on for you, or vice versa, and the ones you love the most not understanding you. I just, the empathy I felt about that situation, because I have been on the other side of it as the person who didn't understand, and I thought, I'm such an ass. But I didn't know. And when I found out that it was a biological difference in cognition, really, more than anything, any other way to describe it, I went, oh, and then I thought, well, if I could just explain what just happened for me, if I could get everyone to think this way, then we would just eliminate all this stigma. It'd just be gone, because it literally left me like, water off a duck's back. I just couldn't understand. It was just the ignorance keeping it, me not knowing. So I thought, oh, let me explain. So it's been a driving force in my work, is to help people understand it. Either people that have, with ADHD, just understanding themselves, or the people that love them and want to love them and live with them and support them, having them understand. Because if you don't understand, you can accidentally shame someone continuously, not even know it.
What you just said is so incredible. And one of the reasons why we get along so well is we realize that these problems that are in our household are not just our problems. These are pervasive throughout the human condition. And if we can find ways to help our family members, who else can we help? Because our family has to go out into the world and face other people. And if other people can't correct that ignorance, it's going to be hard for the people we love forever.
And why I'm not big on keeping, I've got groups and stuff, but I try to intermix, because exactly what you just said. You can't just have a conclave of like people with ADHD, like you don't interact with the world. You have to be out in the world. And so a lot of my work is focused on helping that part of the picture, and it's not easy. It's really funny, because you just reminded me, when I was in school for coach training, they said, it was like a class of 30 people, and it was like, let's go around and see what's your goals, what you want to do now that you know all of this information. And people were like, I don't remember what they were saying, to tell you the truth, but it was like basically starting a business, or coaching people, helping people, bringing this back to their workplace and helping set up things in the workplace. And I was like, well, I want everyone in the world, to stop, destigmatize ADHD, like just globally destigmatize it. And they all laughed when they were like, oh, that's really nice, Jenny, like trying to be all
what
sweet
a
to me.
wonderfully unrealistic goal. You go do that, sweetie.
I was like, but the funny thing is, because it has always been, that was the priority for me, that when I started with a podcast, I was getting, global reach. I can say now, after that 2 years, that I am, in a small way, making a global impact.
Give us the name of your podcast.
I'm sorry?
What's the name of your podcast, Jenny?
Oh, C and ADHD. SEE. like you see. Because I kept thinking, if everyone could see what I do, like get it. If you could see in ADHD, it's sort of a play on words that way. It's
That's a
not
very
really
clever
like
play on words.
Yeah, I just want people to get it. That's, let's just get it. It's really not rocket science.
And that's one of the most beautiful things about modern technology. You and I both have these shows that we hopefully help to improve the discourse that we're having on ADHD, to make the discussion better and richer and more intelligent instead of so limited and toxic.
Yeah, the judgment and the stigma is so real. Even when you just don't realize it, even people that have ADHD do it too, And so
what do you think that's about?
It's interesting.
Why the stigma?
Because, it's just natural. I think it's human. First we group, we socialize, and we group and we categorize. That's what our brains do. We just, to give us a shorthand into making sense of our world, oh, you're this, you're that, this, that, So I think we just come by it, honestly, like that's our natural default system. But you have to use your intelligence, override that and say, that's not real. That's just my brain sorting things out.
I watched this wonderful video. I can't pronounce the guy's name to save my life. He is an Indian guru. And he basically demonstrated very succinctly that you never see anything outside yourself. Because everything that you see is seen at first upside down in the back of your retina, then it's righted up again, then the parts of your brain that recognize color and shape and all that stuff creates this image inside your brain. So it's all happening inside you. So you never see anything outside yourself. As much as you think you do by pointing at it, it's always inside you.
That is such a big, deep thought. I love it.
Yeah, I saved it somewhere because it really helps drive home the fact that your senses are great and handy, but for the most part, they're bullshitting you.
Yeah, you can't think everything you think.
Yeah, they're giving you something to work with. But any kind of judgments or paradigms or labels that you throw upon it, you must own the fact that those all come from you.
Yes.
And then when you can figure out that your tendency, your reflex in doing this serves a purpose for you, and it's usually safety. You're looking to categorize and sort things out. And if things are different from you, because you are familiar to you, you are wonderful and normal and safe. So things that are different from you are dangerous to your ego. So you must keep them away. And again, that's the BS we tell ourselves.
So you're talking about like sort of that fight, flight, or freeze response that I think, is so like, so if shame is the foundation, there's the amygdala, and it's probably actually the other way around, but it really feels like there's this always ever present shame. And then above it's like how you respond to everything. And I am always going back to that, because if you can understand the biology of that, and then sort of stop, separate yourself from, I tell people all the time that their feelings are giving them information. They're cluing them in like a homing device. Like, oh, I feel good. Keep doing more of this. Oh, I don't feel good. Stop doing that. Oh, that hurts. Oh, that's good. Feelings give you information and to help guide you. They're not you. They feel like you, though, when you get really sucked in. And especially if it's feeding the shame and the story and everything that's familiar to you, that you go, yep, this makes sense. This is my world.
Energy flows into you, and it flows through you, and it flows back out again. I want to just clarify this for people that aren't familiar with the word shame, shame is that self-assessment that you are bad. You are not good enough. You are not worthy. So you believe that your default setting in the world is worthless. And that is a horrible way to live. And it can be very difficult to unlearn that. But if you have any element of shame in you, I encourage you to take it on. Because if you're able to make peace with that and work over it, there's so much beauty and power in you that you don't yet see. So you need to get above it. Am I right about that, Jennie?
Yeah. I always tell people if they can try to, I think forgiveness is the easiest tool, kind of thought exercise that you can do, that you can do easily and in the privacy of your own home, and work on that, forgiving yourself for having that feeling. Because some people get mad at themselves for having that feel, like they're fighting against the, they're trying to change that feeling, but instead of sort of embracing it and rolling with it and getting over it quicker, it almost becomes this constant struggle of just dealing with the feelings of shame. So if you could sort of forgive yourself and say, you know what, I'm really sorry, self, that you're feeling this way. The truth is you're lovely and you're wonderful. And I'm sorry that I'm not feeling that ultimately right now, but it's okay because I really want to feel, and it helps you just move over that bump a little easier, I think.
And realizing that shame is because of a lot of meaning that you've placed on certain things in your life. And then you begin telling yourself a story about that. I'm bad because I did this, and my dad wouldn't have treated me like this if I was actually a good person. And looking at the story and saying, man, I could have told myself a lot of things about that event. Why did I go with this crap? And start thinking about reworking that story, because like you said, you're worth it. You're fabulous underneath.
I think that, my dad's suicide helped me go, that's a really, it's a powerful example to give folks, and people really seeing, because like even right now, say I sort of slowed down and it just sort of brings up memories and stuff, and it's not pleasant, but it is something I'm at peace with now. So something really tragic and horrible, and it was when I started to reframe it, like you're talking about beliefs and stories that we tell ourselves. Mm-hmm. I was really angry for about 10 years after he died. I mean, I didn't know it, but I was a little self-destructive, and I was hanging out with the wrong crowd, and I was really like, who cares kind of attitude, really not in a good place. But once I started to forgive him and started to think about it instead of something that had happened to me, that's something that he must have been suffering, so like in a way that I really can't really grasp. I mean, I can know it intellectually, but that's a pain that, I don't know, and really feeling badly for him. That reframed the whole story for me. My whole life changed after that. I mean, that was granted like in my 30s, but life got really better. Life got really better. I started being able to stick up for myself and make healthier choices because just that one, just reframing that one thing.
Forgiveness can really blow the barn doors open, can't they?
Yeah.
And really open up the world becomes bigger in a very positive way when you let go of that. And you and I both, it sounds like, used that energy of that forgiveness, that deeper understanding, and channeled it into the work we do. Is that fair to say?
That's why every day, all the people I work with, it's the most rewarding way to work with people, is to just let people really tell you what they're thinking and be there for them and hold that space for them to explore how they came to be this way and what might they do about it. Coaching is the greatest thing in the world. I mean, I guess you would say probably the same thing, right?
Yeah, and the people that haven't got themselves a coach don't know what they're missing.
Even I have a coach, and I am a coach.
Same here. You got to have one.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
how has doing this work changed you?
how has doing the work changed me?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just, I think I've developed a greater self-appreciation. I I know from talking things through, and being more objective, I seem to come out not as bad as like living it. Like living it, I feel like I can beat myself up for things, like yelling at my kid. I know, but I'm a coach, for crying out loud. I know better than to do that. But when I get to talk out, what happened, and forgive myself and say, I'm doing the best I can too. I'm a human. And yes, I do know better. And I also know that there's no, I can get off this call with someone who's helped me sort of vent that out and think about it. And I can run up to my kid and give him a big hug, and we can move forward. Like I don't have to sit there and, I used to wouldn't have done that. I used to win it with my daughter when she was little, before I ever started coaching. I would have gotten all blown up for her and really felt bad, and then just gone out and had a drink or went to a party and tried to run away from myself and really sort of hate myself. But this is so much healthier.
No kidding.
So much better.
And life is a lot less heavy when you can function that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And we all do make mistakes. We all mess up. And even when I do know better and I say myself in the moment, and I even know better, I have to forgive myself,
Once you give yourself permission to be human, there's a lot less to kick your own ass about. Yes, you expect yourself to trip and fall and bump into things. It's just part of the nature of things. So don't sweat it.
Don't sweat it.
Now, you clearly had a lot of powerful lessons in your life, from the stuff that's gone on with your family members, your own experiences. Is there one or two top lessons that really stand out for you?
I'm just pulling this in. I'm sorry. Let me plug this in. Top lessons, besides the forgiveness issue. I think what I'm talking to people a lot about lately has to do with really managing their emotional responses. Like I said, that fight, flight, or freeze. Mm-hmm. I'm really fascinated with the work that James Ochoa, he wrote a book called Focus Forward that I recommend to everybody, which I laugh because I don't make a penny. I should make some money the way I'm always recommending his book. But it is amazing to think that you can use the power of your imagination to shut down your amygdala enough to be able to deal, to be able to move forward and not get, when you feel really flooded with emotion and you just freeze. And it gets you unfrozen.
The flooding is a really common thing for the ADHDers, that emotional flooding.
Yeah.
And the book is called Focus Forward.
Yeah. And they may see it, it may not feel like flooding. Like maybe it feels to you like procrastination. Like you just can't make yourself, it's like you're just banging up against a wall. Like I have to sit here because you're overwhelmed. You don't realize that actually what's going on is in your brain. And your brain is like, this amygdala is amazing because it goes, alert, alert, And
warning, warning.
Type, you're like, yeah. If you're the freeze type, you're like, I can't do anything. And so people are sitting there going, oh, chunk it down and break it down and do little babies. And it's like, you can't even begin to.
Wrong part of the brain, folks. The chunking and the categorizing, that part of the brain is shut down when the amygdala is in overload.
Yeah. So getting to know that, first when I feel this way, forget about a strategy of getting productive. Let me just ease the tension. Let me shut her down. Let me try to do something that will put me in another energy. So I always suggest to people to use music because I think that's sort of a really easy shortcut that you can, do really quickly. it's like cheating almost, because it's you can just turn on a radio. There's
Hey, you
music.
do what you got to do.
If you make a unique playlist,
Jenny,
puts your brain. Yeah.
your feed's getting a little foggy there.
Oh, am I?
Yeah.
Okay. Is this better?
You started talking about making a playlist.
So when you make a playlist and you can try to remember some of the songs that were really popular when you were 18 and young and having fun, your memories will start, that part of your brain that does memory and imagination and all those things, that will help you shut down your amygdala. That will help unfreeze you.
Awesome and simple, because you're just going with those emotional associations. You know, positive, fun, relaxed feelings are associated with remembering that music. That's brilliant. You got to love technology. Jenny's feed keeps freezing on us.
Say it again.
Oh, where did I leave off? Our technology is starting to freeze up on us.
Oh, I thought you said something before that I missed.
I was just remarking how brilliant and simple that strategy is.
Absolutely. And free. Like, people need free. You got free. Turn on the radio and get yourself feeling differently than frozen. That's when you know it works. And then you can engage all those wonderful strategies that, Brian, I know you give everybody, like was just.
Yeah, why is it always in the good part that the technology stops cooperating?
Am I still freezing?
Yeah, I don't know why it's happening. It's just suddenly freezing. You start to go into something wise, and then it starts lagging and dragging, so we can't hear what you're saying. But the gist, I think, of what we've been discussing is how accessible these lessons are. They're around you. How accessible wisdom is, reflecting upon the teachings of your own family experience, and making sure that you take shame, anger, sadness, grief, and you use some kind of alchemy to turn it into something much more productive and useful. And the one example that you just gave was music. Using it to shift being overwhelmed into being happy. And it's not avoiding your emotions. It's not denial. It's using the power of your own brain to change its state into something much more resourceful, because you can get a hell of a lot more done in a happy, positive place than you can from a place of shutdown. So I'm going to go pick up that book as soon as we are finished here. And because I know our technology is going to jump up, kick us in the butt again, let me say a huge thank you to you, Jenny, for coming on. This has been really, really fun.
Thank you so much for having me on, Brian. Absolutely.
You bet. And I know we're going to be connecting soon and doing some awesome things in the world. So thank you to everybody for tuning in to The Compassionate Dad. I really honor your time, and it's been a privilege to speak with you today. Take care, everybody.